Hey everybody, Tim here. I probably should be in bed right now. I've had a long day. Didn't get much sleep the night before, but I've got phantom clowns on the brain today. Now, if you're asking yourself what is a phantom clown, first off, it's not those jackasses that were dressing up as clowns and showing up on people's Ring doorbell at 4 in the morning. Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, that is frightening, honestly. Anyone dressed as a clown at 4 in the morning can't be up to any good. It's not like there's random children's parties happening at 4 in the morning that clowns happen to get the wrong door. That being said, that's not the same thing as a phantom clown. A phantom clown was a phenomenon that was happening in the 80s. Let me see. I have a webpage pulled up in front of me now, the Skirben Legend Wikia. And they have an instance that took place May 6, 1981, Boston, Massachusetts. The instance they have listed here, police released a warning that a man dressed as a clown that men dressed as a clown were harassing elementary school children. One of the men was wearing a clown suit just from the waist up, and from the waist down, he was naked. According to the reports, he had been driving a black van near Franklin Park, Roxbury area of Boston between 4 and 6 p.m. Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it? One thing that's interesting about phantom clowns is I don't think anyone was ever arrested, and I'm not entirely sure there was ever any disappearances of children that was directly related to a report of a phantom clown at the time. Which, if I was looking for a criminal who's already driving a big black van, who's dressed as a clown but naked from the waist down, I would think that criminal would be easy to find, especially if they're operating between 4 and 6 p.m. in the middle of the day. So already, in my mind, this sounds like a case of mass hysteria. And why do I say mass hysteria versus just simple hysteria or a hoax? First off, I'm no shrink, so this is just me talking off the cuff. I am not trained in anything except for photography and work-related stuff. That's the extent of my training, and I'm not great at either of it. That being said, the reason why I'm saying mass hysteria is this takes place primarily in the 80s, before the internet as we know it was around, before social media. Matter of fact, in the 80s, you couldn't even call 2 towns over without paying long distance. Communications were not easy in the 80s. People are still sending each other letters, which my handwriting was terrible. So if you didn't get a letter from me back in the 80s, it's because you wouldn't have been able to read it anyway, and I probably didn't know you because I was a child. But the thing about this period of time is there was no internet, no social media, but yet kids started reporting similar instances. Black vans, men dressed as clowns trying to get them in the black vans. It's fascinating because you're probably saying, the news ran with it. Local news ran with it. But that local news didn't affect news a state away. I know what you're thinking. That's crazy because we hear about everything everywhere. We do that now. In the 80s, we didn't know what was going on in Massachusetts. We didn't know what was going on in Kentucky or any of these places. We knew what was going on in the news in Georgia, if you lived in Georgia, which is where I'm at. We knew what was going on in our general area. Unless it was huge, unless it was big news. And unfortunately, weirdos dressed as clowns driving around in black vans really wouldn't have made national news. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, because I would be interested if there actually is national news footage out there. See, that's the thing about stuff like this. I don't mind being proven wrong. If it helps to shed a little more light on the situation itself, that's great. Being wrong just means that you learned something, so you'll be right later on. Now, this article that I was referencing has a story from a guy named Brandon Paris. He wrote a book called Weird Massachusetts. I like the weird state books. I have a Weird Georgia somewhere in my basement where all the creepy stuff goes, in my basement. But I'm going to read this to you. And check out this site, by the way. I'll say it again. The Abscurbin Legend Wikia. So he writes, I wanted to tell you about my clown in a van story. When I was 12 years old and my brother was 8, my parents would bring us to their friend's house who also had kids ages 11 and 8. So all the kids would play together, and we would gather up other neighborhood kids and play huge games of capture the flag, etc. One night around 10, the 4 of us were going to meet in a huge... I would like to know if that's 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. because it makes a huge difference in this type of story, but... Oh, night. I'm being stupid. It says right there, night. So one night around 10 p.m. And yes, in the 80s, you could be 12 years old and roaming the streets at 10 p.m. It's perfectly fine in the 80s. It's amazing that more of us weren't snatched up off the street by random phantom clowns. Oh, back to it though. Around 10, the 4 of us were going to meet a huge group of people at this park. On the way there, we were closely followed by a black van with tinted windows and what looked like a dude dressed like a clown. Okay, well, it's 10 o'clock at night and the van has tinted windows. How do you know this guy is dressed like a clown? I mean, I've seen a lot of vans with tints, but even if it's parked up under a streetlight, what you're really going to be seeing is glare from the streetlight. So I am curious about that. Did he roll down the window and Sweet Tooth was just standing there looking at you? Did he ask you, do you want to know how I got these scars? I mean, I'm just curious. But to continue, we started getting a little freaked out. So we cut through some yards to get across the block to avoid the van. A little bit later, we saw the van creeping along another street, a little bit down the street from where we were. And we ran through some more yards and got to the park and met everyone. Alright, that's something else that was common in the 80s. If you're running from something, through yards are fair game. Problem is, a lot of those yards had dogs. I know this from experience, and you know what? Fear can make you outrun a dog. I'm not saying you should try it, I'm just saying fear is a powerful motivator. Back to the story. In the middle of our game, we saw the van pull up to the park and sit there for a while. It eventually left. So the next day, I see on the news that a guy driving a black van dressed like a clown got arrested in a mall parking lot after he tried to get some teenage girls in his van. He also had a record of being a sexual deviant. This had to be back in like 1992, 93. But I still have that memory. Now here's the thing. I don't doubt his story. I doubt whether or not he saw the guy dressed as a clown. Again, 10 o'clock at night, tinted windows. I'm sure that when he saw the news report in the black van, his memory probably added the clown into it. I could be wrong though. I mean, I'm not saying the guy's a liar. I'm just saying that when you're young, your memory has a way of adding things to suit a narrative that you want to believe. I am saying, however, like if there is a black van just like following you around, that's creepy on its own accord. Another thing is, I'm not entirely sure this falls into the phantom clowns we were talking about earlier, because this takes place in 92, 93, when the original instances started around 81. But that being said, I don't know, maybe it was. The thing that people talk about most regarding phantom clowns, the ones of us that remember it was a thing, I say remember is the thing. I'll be honest with you. I might have already mentioned this. I'm not sure. But when I was a kid, I never heard of this. I never heard of phantom clowns. I found out about it like decades later in my 20s reading the internet. And it was like, phantom clowns. Then I read it. I was like, holy crap, that sounds horrifying. But the thing about it is I'm willing to bet that, you know what? I got confused for a second. I'm sorry. As I was saying, most people who do talk about the phantom clowns things, they usually try to lump it into the supernatural. There's been stories of, mentions it here in this webpage, as a matter of fact, of like people entering their kid's room and their kids not being in their bed, then looking out the window and seeing a clown leading their child into the woods. You see, you think that one would make news, wouldn't you? Like a clown leading your child into the woods. That would be national news because that is legitimately horrifying. Also, I would be out that window and on top of a clown in 3 seconds. But that's just me. Of course, I'm a fat guy, so it might be hard for me to get out that window. Matter of fact, I might actually be helping the clown if I tried to get out the window because I'd most likely get stuck. I'd be better if I just ran for the door, but knowing me, I would try to get out the window. I digress. So a lot of people try to make these clowns out to be supernatural, which also makes for an interesting story, but it seems kind of weird for a supernatural entity. It's an entity that has access to a fleet of black vans and goes for a clown motif, works in large groups, targets primarily children during the day, except for that one instance at night where that one guy got arrested. So I guess he's not a supernatural entity though. If I had to guess, I would have to say this is a mass hysteria type situation. One kid claimed to see a booger bear. The story spreads. It gets more and more complex as it goes. And children's imaginations are amazing. If you really want to know how far a child would go when coerced to tell a story, look up the satanic panic in the 80s. People got arrested based off the stuff children were just making up to make grown-ups happy. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. But if you are from the 80s and remember the phantom clown situation, for that matter, if you're a millennial and you've dealt with a phantom clown, put it in the comments. I am dying to know your story. And if this seems like it rambled a lot, it probably did. I'm going to apologize. I'm trying my best to grow this channel, which means posting because the analytics wants quantity. I'm still trying to provide quality, but quantity seems to be key. But please subscribe, like. This is a little bonus part, a little bonus podcast I add. The real podcast usually has my buddy Jeremy in it. So if you get a chance, check out podcast number 3 and podcast number 5. You'll get a kick out of those, I promise. And watch out for phantom clowns and black vans, because unless it's the A-Team, you don't want to deal with a black van. Stay spooky, everybody.